Okay guys, welcome to DadTube. DadTube is all about the truth, and even if it kind of is uncomfortable, we're going to talk about it straight. We're going to deal with it. We're going to confront it. This is the second kind of like video we're doing on this channel. We got some great feedback on the first one where, for those of you who didn't see it, we did a review of some Billie Eilish lyrics. We got some great comments, and I think that a lot of the commentators said, you know, there's a generation gap going on here, and that is absolutely true. But I think more importantly than that, there is also a gender gap, because I think that these are clearly lyrics that relate to girls rather than boys. That's just my opinion. It got me thinking about lyrics that I used to be interested in when I was a boy. They were more about the abstract of the world. We're going to turn the tables back in this video, back to lyrics over the years that were sung by women. You know, when I was growing up in the 70s, for example, one of the big bands whose lyrics fascinated me was Pink Floyd, and they had what was at that time a revolutionary album called Dark Side of the Moon, and everyone was amazed and fascinated, not just on the music but on the lyrics. You could almost have like a philosophy built around the dark side of the moon. Of course, the great joke at the end of that album, if you listen to it, is they say, well, of course, there is no dark side of the moon. The matter of fact is, it's all dark, which is kind of technically incorrect, but it kind of was saying, don't take this too seriously. But of course people did. So one of the great songs on Dark Side of the Moon is Time. And I think that when I heard these lyrics, it gave me a sense of, this is what someone who's much older than you is telling to a younger you. Some people say, if they were to write a letter to their 16-year-old selves, what would they say in it? And I guess this is kind of that letter, albeit it was written by guys in their 20s. It's all about the passing of time, ticking away the moments that make up a dull day. You fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way, kicking around on a piece of ground in your hometown, waiting for someone or something to show you the way. So you're looking for a place to go. You're kind of thinking, what's happening? But in the meantime, time is passing by. You are young, and life is long, and there is time to kill today. And then one day, you find that 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. So you run and you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking, racing around to come up behind you again. The sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older, shorter of breath, and one day closer to death. So that's a song about taking the opportunities. Yes, you have your life before you, but before you know it, time is gone. And that's quite an abstract thought. It's a call to action. It basically means life is what happens whilst you're busy making plans. Take the opportunity now. That's really a call to action. So that's just one example. Another Pink Floyd song came in their album, I think it was 77, they produced this album called Animals. And the Animals had 3 tracks on it. I'm going to see if I can remember them all now. Dogs, Sheep, and I can't remember the third one. Anyway, but the first one, Dogs, was all about the evils of capitalism. That's the metaphor I read into it. The dogs being a metaphor for people who are combating and aggressive. You've got to be crazy, you've got to have a real need, you've got to sleep on your toes when you're on the street. You've got to be able to pick out the easy meat with your eyes closed, and then moving in silently, downwind and out of sight. You've got to strike when the moment is right without thinking. And after a while, you can work on points to start, like the club tie, the firm handshake, a certain look in the eye, and the easy smile. You have to be trusted by the people that you lie to, so that when they turn their backs on you, you'll get the chance to put the knife in. And the guy who wrote these lyrics, Roger Waters, he's an angry guy. He's still angry today about the evils of society, particularly in those days. And we were just approaching the great greed is good era of the 80s, and that was very much anticipating that, but very much, of course, opposed to that. But at the same time, there are lyrics that kind of put on the other side of the equation. There's a great lyric writer called Neil Peart, and he's so smart, he has the nickname, The Professor. He actually plays drums in this band Rush, but he's perhaps going to be noted, I suspect, noted more over time for the lyrics that he wrote. This is a particular one about really this whole concept of fairness and equality, and it's written through the metaphor of trees. There is unrest in the forest, there is trouble in the trees. The maples want more sunlight and the oaks ignore their pleas. The trouble with the maples, and they're quite convinced they're right, they say the oaks are just too lofty and grab up all the light, but the oaks can't help their feelings if they like the way they're made, and they wonder why the maples just can't be happy in their shade. I won't read all the lyrics, but it carries on. So, the maples formed a union and demanded equal rights. The oaks are just too greedy. We will make them give us light. Now there's no more oak oppression, for they passed a noble law, and the trees are all kept equal with hatchet, axe and saw. This is quite in a different direction to the previous lyrics, but nevertheless it created a balance. And I was looking for things that challenged what I previously thought. If you keep reading things or listening to things which you agree with, it's just confirmation bias. You need to be reading things, trying to figure out things that you don't agree with and say, is there actually something I'm missing here in my world outlook? I read those ones out as being examples of things that I think boys agree to, but boys didn't like any of those groups. They didn't like Pink Floyd. No, girls, I'm saying, didn't like those groups. Girls, they didn't like it. It's too abstract, too weird, and they were very much boy bands. I was doing that to try and draw a contrast between the difference between lyrics that girls relate to and lyrics that boys relate to. So I'm going to turn the table back to lyrics or songs performed by women, and just to go back to that, because I think what is interesting is how they've developed over the years. We're going to start with one of the great idols of the 80s in terms of women is Madonna. If you think who was like the Ariana Grande of the 80s, who was the equivalent, it was definitely Madonna. Now Madonna is seen today as being a bit fuddy-duddy, a bit of a cranky old woman, but she was like the Queen to Michael Jackson's King. I know Michael Jackson's now been kind of disgraced, but you know, they were the King and Queen of pop. So Madonna really started connecting with women about sexuality. And of course we all know that one of her very early songs was Like a Virgin, touched for the very first time. And a lot of girls connected with that, trying to start to see their own way towards adulthood and to having relationships. But then she kind of took it to a different level by perhaps her most successful song ever was Into the Groove. And in theory that was all about dancing, you know, you can dance. But of course no one was really fooled by that. Everyone knew that Into the Groove was quite a basic metaphor. You know, get into the groove, you've got to prove your love to me. That was very much full on saying women, you need to explore your sexuality. What I think was interesting about Madonna was, and the way she continued to relate to, was she took the narrative further. It wasn't just simply that. So after she did that, she did a song on that. The top song was called Papa Don't Preach. This was about relationship with her father and what happened when she got into trouble. The chorus goes, Papa don't preach, I'm in trouble deep. Papa don't preach, I've been losing sleep. But I've made up my mind, I'm keeping my baby. I'm gonna keep my baby. He says that he's gonna marry me. We can raise a little family. Maybe we'll be all right. It's a sacrifice. But my friends are telling me to give it up, saying I'm too young, I ought to live it up. But what I need some now is some good advice. So that's interesting in both ways, because it takes the concept of the sexuality and say, look, you know, there needs to be responsibility as well. But also it explores the relationship with the older generation. I'm sure a lot of girls think about, how do I relate to my parents as I'm becoming more independent, as I'm becoming an adult myself. And I think what that explores very interestingly is that they're scared because parents preach. They make judgments, they're overly judgmental. But at the same time, they can be a place for getting good advice, help, assurance, strength and confidence. Because Madonna covered so many dimensions of what young women were thinking about at that time, was a real contributor to her success. I want to go on to a different artist now, which is kind of different. Canadian artist, whereas Madonna was very much New York, really she was obviously New York Italian, being brought up with nothing, and she really had to fight. So there's a lot of fighting in her career and in her lyrics. Alanis Morissette is somewhat more cultured, comes from Canada, but equally has a real vitriol and an anger in her. The message I think this sent to women was, look, you have a right to be angry, you can be angry, this is fine, and you need to be angry. This is a song she wrote about, I don't know whether it relates to a true experience or not, but when a partner dumps her for another woman. And this is what she is saying in the lyrics to him. You seem very well, things look peaceful. I'm not quite as well. I thought you should know. Did you forget about me, Mr. Duplicity? I hate to bug you in the middle of dinner. It was a slap in the face how quickly I was replaced. And are you thinking of me when you, you know, and it goes on like that. The music she puts is really hard. But there's another dimension to Alanis Morissette, which is more thinking about how do you relate to the world and the modern things around you. One of her well-known songs is a song called Thank You. And I think it's interesting because I know that one of the great, one of the albums, I think, is it the album that has come out called, is by, tell me.
You know.
I can't remember the precise name. Okay,
you know what it is.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
No.
No?
Thank you next.
Thank you next, that was the one.
You know who it's by.
Oh, Ariana Grande.
Exactly.
Yeah, the song was nominated for the Best Female Pop Vocal Performance at the 2000 Grammy Awards, this one.
2000?
Yeah. So this is why we're moving on in time. So. This is when Alanis Morissette has started thinking about the environment and how she relates to the environment. This is what happens when the internet takes over and messes up what you're trying to do. So she starts off saying, how about getting off those antibiotics? How about stopping eating when I'm full up? Thank you, India. Thank you, disillusionment. Thank you, frailty. Thank you, consequence. Thank you, silence. So she's very much focusing on her inputs and outputs. Well, she's Canadian, but you know, America is well known. They like their food and they're saying we don't need it. And their medicine, antibiotics being a metaphor for over-medicalisation. And they're saying we need to stop consuming and we need to start giving. Thank you, India. Thank you, science. These are all very spiritual places. Getting rid of baggage. She goes on to say, how about me not blaming you for everything? How about me enjoying the moment for once, being at peace? So I think this is really a song about well-being. A lot of people, I think, are trying to find their way towards well-being, and this is kind of like gives you a manifesto for how to be well. Again, I'm making the contrast because these are lyrics about the person rather than what boys are interested in, which is about the abstract world. So I'm going to give you another great example of one of the great singers of the 60s, in fact. We're going really back in time now. We're zipping and zapping around the time zone here. Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell was beloved, obviously one of the great performers at the 1969 Woodstock Festival. Some would say her best album is an album called Blue. It's an incredible performance just with her and the piano. The lyrics are just so, you can interpret them in many ways. I'm going to just read. Hey Blue, and there is a song for you, ink on a pin underneath the skin, an empty space to fill in. Well, there's so many sinking, now you've got to keep thinking, you can make it through these waves. Acid, booze and ass. Needles, gun and grass, lots of laughs. Everyone's saying that hell's the hippest way to go well. I don't think so, but I'm going to take a look around it though. Blue, I love you. Am I allowed to play a little bit of the song?
Yeah.
So I'm going to just play a little bit of the song, just give you a flavour of what it actually sounds like. See the piano? So that's just an example. I've seen so many people, actually, or pretty much all women, who say when they get depressed, what they do is they listen to Joni Mitchell because it resonates so well with that searching. I'm going to do one final song. It is an interesting one because it is performed by someone called Barbara Streisand. She's probably the oldest performer, but she's still hit because she is playing at Hyde Park this summer. 2019. It's the headline act, and I mean, technically, if you were to say to me who is the best female singer around today, I think her voice is held up, but she is probably the most technically proficient singer. And she used to do these shows, just her and a giant backing orchestra. You know, people would pay thousands of dollars to watch her, and this was like 20 years ago when thousands of dollars was a lot more money than it is today. She did a song called The Way We Were. I'm going to just play a little bit and then we're going to talk about some of the lyrics. One of of her most famous songs, it's true. And it's not a song she wrote herself, by the way, even though weirdly on my on this internet thing I'm looking at, it credits it to Barbra Streisand and Lionel Richie. Now I'm pretty sure she didn't write that song. No, that was just the artists on that particular thing. It's interesting, yeah, memories like the corners of my mind, misty watercoloured memories of the way we were, scattered pictures of the smiles we left behind, smiles we gave to one another for the way we were. Can it be that it was all so simple then? Or has time rewritten every line? If we had the chance to do it all again, tell me, would we, could we? Memories may be beautiful, and yet, what's too painful to remember, we simply choose to forget. Even though that is kind of a retrospective person looking back on their lives and thinking about the laughter and the pain that they've lived through. I think what they're saying is, it's like a message. It's like what I said about earlier, that email you could write to your 16-year-old self saying, during your life there will be good times, there will be bad times. Time has a way of erasing the bad times. There will be laughter, there will be fun, and those will be the memories of your life. You know, you have to look at things positively. Take the moments, live in the moments, and that's the way to go forward. And again, it's a classic female song because it's talking about the inner self rather than vague abstractions. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about the nature of lyrics. Now, why are lyrics in songs important? I mean, let's just wrap up and put a sort of a lid on this topic of lyrics. As youngsters, we all relate to the music of our age and the artists that perform them. Then, beyond the music and the tunes and the melodies, you think about, well, what are they actually saying? What is in those lyrics? Because you're looking for a way forward. You know, I think one of the great songs of all time was written by Bruce Springsteen, of course, Born to Run. But basically, the message of that song, and I'm sorry I'm going slightly off tangent here, the message of that song is that we're young and we all got to get out of what we're doing, so we need to just get in a car and go somewhere to a place we want to go we translate, we were born to run, you know, translate us, we were born to run. And many years later he kind of said, that was a neat idea, but the problem was I never figured out where they should go to. And he had pondered this over the years since he'd originally written this song. And what he said is that he figured out that what people are looking for is a connection. Whether that connection is with a family, whether it's a cause, whether it's a belief, whether it's with other people, they're looking for a connection. And I think what lyrics provide is that connection. You can feel as an individual that you can connect with certain lyrics, and this enhances you and gives your sense of your life more meaning than it previously had. And that's why lyrics are important, and lyrics will stay with you for the rest of your lives, as will the music of the times that you were brought up in. We talk about the generation gap. The generation gap is largely about the fact that your deepest impressions are formed on you when you're a youngster, and that's why the music and the lyrics of the age and the ideas and beliefs of the age are the ones that stay with you for the rest of your lives. Hopefully you will continue to listen to music, think about the lyrics. As I said, think about the lyrics that go slightly against what you believe, and you can think about, is there something in them, and make different connections. So I hope you, with that input, enjoy listening to music, listening to songs, and you have a great time with your music. That's all from me today. This is DadTube signing off. Stay tuned. Please subscribe if you like it, and stay tuned to another DadTube coming your way soon, but will be on a very different topic. Don't know what it is yet, but it will be different.
What do you think the next video should be?